Hello, TikTok. It's Jennifer, Audrey and Grace's mom. Look, I know a lot of you don't know much about me. Audrey and Grace and I had our channel for like a year, and then I just started making a lot of videos lately. You're all probably wondering what's going on, so I think I'll tell you just a little bit of what's going on. Okay, so just to tell you a little bit about me, I am Audrey and Grace's mom. Audrey is 10, Grace is 8. I'm a single mom. We live in Los Angeles, California. We're going through hell right now on earth because we're unjustly separated. We have been for 5 years to no fault of ours. Now, I've told this story many times. We're unjustly and illegally separated. In order for the DCFS to take children away from a parent, the parent has to abuse, neglect, or abandon their children. They cannot just take them away because they feel like it, but they've done that with me 3 times. So what happened is when I was pregnant with Audrey, I had the perfect pregnancy. I, went fully natural, gave birth in 3 hours. I did my prenatal yoga, ate healthy, had a beautiful pregnancy, dreamed of being this amazingly beautiful mom and family. And aside from being a really great mom to be, I'm a singer-songwriter, Christian Catholic singer-songwriter under the name of Jennifer Grace and the Starry Eyes. And you can find that on YouTube with the albums Will You Take a Chance in Faith with Me? So yes, if you go to YouTube and Google Jennifer Grace and the Starry Eyes, Will You Take a Chance in Faith with Me? You can listen to my songs for free, or you can purchase them at iTunes, CD Baby, Amazon, and all over the internet under the same names. So aside from getting ready to release the album that I recorded 2 years before my daughter Audrey was born, I did a student film called Mother's Dandelion that you can find on YouTube a clip of, and I was on the Doctor's TV show as an expected mother. So yes, I was so looking forward to Audrey's birth, and it was just the most beautiful experience of my entire life. I held her in my arms, and I felt as if I'd known her and loved her my whole life. I felt like I was holding God in my arms. I'd never wanted that moment to end. It was so. And so what happened is that research and statistics say that at least 80% or more women, when they give birth, have postpartum depression. It's a natural thing called the baby blues, but sometimes it can be worse, and a lot of women don't talk about it. They're So with me having a mental health condition, which is called bipolar disorder, which I was diagnosed at 20 years ago when I was living in a convent, and I felt like I was dying, and I went running out and had to be hospitalized and was told that I have bipolar disorder, I was predisposed to. So yes, as I said, having a mental health condition, I was predisposed to having bipolar disorder. Now, I really should sue my doctor because he let me go off my medication with my pregnancy, which was amazing, and I did perfectly fine, beautiful, but he should have had me. See, my former doctor at that time said that I might not have to go back on my medication because in a way, for a woman that has bipolar, having the baby almost can kind of like cure her. It changes her body chemistry. We were hoping that that was going to happen with me. And not to go into all the details of my life, because I am writing a book, so stay tuned for that. But my ex-husband at the time, or my husband at the time is now my ex-husband, also had a mental health condition called schizophrenia. And I believe he was off his medication at that time, and he was very unstable. And so what I needed more than anything else, more than medication or anything else, was simply for him to be there for me and be supportive. And really, he did say a couple times, can I get you anything? But I really needed him by my side to sit there with me. See, I talked to so many moms while I was pregnant, and they said, well, be prepared when the baby's born. You're not going to sleep for weeks. So I took that literally, and I just assumed that it was natural to be up for 4 days straight with no sleep. Big mistake, but that's what happened. That's what happened with me. So aside from my ex-husband, really just on the first day that we were home from the hospital asking if he could help, after that, he just kind of went into the bedroom, closed the blinds, and slept for 3 days, left me and Audrey alone in the nursery. I had that postpartum depression. I wasn't hurting her. There's a very big umbrella with postpartum depression. Some moms go to the extreme of actually not meaning to, but hurting their children. I did not do that. On the other hand, I was so loving and so gentle and so tender and so kind and so overprotective that. And have you ever felt like your life has been a movie? I'm sure you have. If you're a human being like me, I'm sure you have at one point or another. I just had a bad feeling that something was not right. And my ex-husband was acting very strange, and I wasn't. And so this is going to sound strange, but my ex-husband was running around the apartment, closing all the blinds frantically, and says, I'm going to the pharmacy to get your medication, and if anybody calls, or if anybody comes to the door, do not answer it. And I'm like, what is going on? This is Okay, so that really freaked me out. So actually, the minute that he walked out the door, I grabbed the cordless phone. I was shaking. I was trying to put Audrey into her car seat that I'd never actually used before. I had never actually even known. I couldn't figure out how to buckle it because I was so nervous. So I called my mom and I was really nervous and really upset and scared. I said, Mom, I don't know what's going on, but he's acting very strange. And I'm going to come over with Audrey right now and, the baby. And she says, oh, I'm sure everything's fine. And I said, no, something is definitely not. And just that moment as that I was on the phone with my mom, there was a knock at the door, a bang, bang, bang. And I said, oh my gosh, there's somebody at the door. She said, can you look through the peephole? And I said, yes, it's the police and a lady. And she says, oh my gosh. She says, call me right back. And at that moment, even before I knew it was the police, when I heard the knock at the door, I just knew in my heart that he had went and called them, because actually he disappeared for like a few minutes before he went to the pharmacy. So I knew that it was like a set. And as much as I believe in God, and I know that God loves me and doesn't want anything bad to happen to me and my baby, I just feared the worst. I thought, oh my gosh, the minute they find out that I have bipolar, they're just going to assume that I abused her or did something horrible, and they're going to take her away from me. So yeah, it was really bad. I'm holding my tiny little newborn baby in my arms. I'm just praying to God, please God, let them see that I'm sane, that I'm stable. Please don't let them take her away. And I invited them to sit down. I was shaking. And lo and behold, I told them, I answered all the questions that they asked about, what happened before I met my ex-husband and during our marriage and the pregnancy. They found me not to be abusing Audrey, obviously, but to be a victim of. So yes, they found me to be a victim of domestic violence. And by that time, my mom and my dad had driven over there. We were in Studio City. They were in the Valley. And they said, what's going on? And then, the DCFS and police told my parents. Yes, so the DCFS and police said that I had to go stay at my parents' house. And right at that time, my ex-husband showed up and said, what are you all doing here? It's like he didn't know what was going on when he was the one that called. It was in the court report that he was the one that called and initiated all of this. Okay, so I feel like I'm going on and on with my life story here, and that's from my book. I will just say that I went to my parents' house. I did forget my suitcase. He called and said that he was going to bring it. I said, no, my dad will come pick it up. He called my dad and said he was on his way over with. And basically what happened is that I just felt a fight or flight situation. When I was sitting on the couch breastfeeding Audrey is when I was told that he was on his way over. And I said, why didn't you do something? You should have said you're not allowed to come over. He goes, oh, it's okay. It's not okay. I panicked and I went out. So as I said, I got very scared that he was coming over. I quickly walked. I didn't run, but I quickly walked outside with Audrey just to get some fresh air just down the block so I would miss him. And my parents came running after me. They were trying to pull her out of my arms. And going back to the thing about like a movie, at that very moment, they're trying to pull her from my arms and I don't want her to get hurt. And I'm holding on to her, but I'm like, what are you doing? He comes flying down the street and literally pulls in the middle of the street, calls. So it was a very dangerous situation. I was not the one that was hurting my baby. I was holding my baby, lovingly caring for her. My parents were pulling. It was like they were trying to hurt her. I don't know what they thought that where I was going or what I was doing. I was just standing there. But he called. And I didn't want to just let them take my baby out of my arms. But at the same time, I knew that if I didn't, that she would only get hurt. They were really pulling her hard. So I had to let her go into their arms. And then all of a sudden, we just started walking back to the house. And I honestly can't tell you exactly what happened. Well, I know what happened. What happened, we went back to the house. The next thing I know, the social worker from the DCFS that had just said that I was a domestic violence victim is now pulling my baby from my loving arms for no reason. It literally, up until that point, was the most devastating thing of my life. And again, I had to let my baby go into this evil woman's hands who had just said that I was a victim of domestic violence and I had not harmed my baby. And now she's taking her away from me. And it must have been my ex-husband or the social worker who also called the fire department and I believe the police. So she didn't take my baby out of my arms immediately, but they were questioning me and trying to trap me and make me look mentally ill. And as I've said on this channel quite often, I'm a devout Catholic Christian mom. Yes, I am, woman. I almost became a nun 20 years ago, lived in a convent. That's how I got, my diagnosis. But anyway, I just kept quiet because I thought and at that moment, such a despairing moment, I just looked up to God and just prayed to God with all my heart and soul. Please, Lord, help me out of this. Please don't let them take my baby away. Please save me from this situation. I don't know what's going to happen. Just speak for me, Lord. And I was reminded by the scripture verse that you might know about when Jesus was getting arrested, that he went like a silent lamb. That sounds horrible, but I just prayed and trusted in God. I said, God, I've done nothing wrong. I know that you're going to get me out of this. You will. And I guess I just felt like no matter whatever I said was going to be used against me, because I was the only person in the room. Well, my ex-husband had schizophrenia, but I was the one being accused of something. I didn't even know what I was being accused of, but I just thought they're going to use it against me and say that I'm crazy. So I'm going to let. So again, not to go into all the details here, but I was hospitalized. It was, Audrey was born on March 16th, 2010. It was a couple days before Easter. And so I spent Easter in the hospital without her. Ironically, on Easter Sunday, there was a patient there that turned around to everybody in the room. We were in the recreation room. He says, you want to find Jesus? Just go to all the mental hospitals and jails in the world. You'll find Jesus there. And I said, yep, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So I would have gotten out of the hospital right away, but I was so adamant about breastfeeding. I took all these breastfeeding classes. They say breast milk is the best milk. And I thought, no, I cannot take this medication that they wanted me to take because I have to breastfeed and be natural. But finally, and as horrible as this sounds, it's true. I was there for like 3 weeks, and my ex-husband came to visit me once in about 2 weeks into it. He said he didn't want to waste money on gas. That's what I was dealing with. Yes, I was all abandoned in this hospital. See, for the first week or so before I started taking the medication, they wouldn't let me hold Audrey, my own baby. And so I'd have to watch my mom holding her through the window. And it was very depressing for me. I thought, what if this is the way it's always going to be? What if I'm not fit to be her mother? Audrey's name means noble strength, and that's one of the reasons why I chose it. Grace's name is gift from God. But Audrey gave me all the strength that I needed and God's grace to get as well as I could and come home to her. That minute that I held her in my arms, I was grateful that my parents were able to care for Audrey while I was in the hospital. But when I came to their house, I saw all these pictures and picture books of all the friends that were over holding her on Easter and the cousins and the family. And it made me very sad that I couldn't spend my first. So what I didn't mention is that after Audrey was taken away from me, she was placed in the hands and custody and care of my ex-husband, who had never even been around babies in an entire life. She ended up getting sick because she was in daycare at 3 weeks old. So finally, because Audrey got sick in daycare at 3 weeks old, they made an exception for Audrey to live with my parents during the week, and then for my ex-husband to come pick her up on the weekends. And what happened is that they went to his house one day. And as I said in one of the previous videos earlier, I believe he was off his medication with schizophrenia, and he gets really, really, sick and dark. My parents went to the apartment, the lights were off, he was watching TV, and she was screaming and crying in the dark. So even when I was able to move back into my parents' house when Audrey was 3 months old, I could not be with her on my own. Audrey had to sleep in their bedroom, and I had to sleep in a separate bedroom. Is that ridiculous? It's like, was I the one that was pulling her out of their arms, or was it the other way around? Why am I the danger? And even though there's no way the DCFS would have ever known if we were breaking the rules or not, they could have let me get up at 4 a.m. or 3 or whenever to feed her. They refused. They said, oh no. So they had to get up and do the feedings and bond with her when I was not able to. But thanks be to God, at least I was able to be in the same home as her, and for the most part, be with her all day long. Now, when she was 3 months old, I started taking her to the YMCA for the Mommy and Me classes with a monitor from my church who would monitor with me. So I'm not complaining. It was amazing that we got to finally be together, and we had such a close bond. I mean, to think that she was ripped from my arms at 4 days old. She was with me in the hospital. I could feel her with me, praying for me. I mean, that's how close we were, and we still are. And Grace is. And at this time, I was still married to my ex-husband. I hadn't gotten a divorce for a couple of years later after that. he had come to visit just a couple of times even. It's not even that he wanted to spend a lot of time with us. I kind of wanted to stay apart from him. And at this time, I was still married. So about 4 months into Audrey's life, all of a sudden my ex-husband starts saying, well, what do you think about us getting a place together? Because he was still living in Studio City. I was with my parents. And I really didn't want to because he was abusive to me physically. And so I felt like I still loved my ex-husband, but I didn't feel comfortable because he was abusive to me. And then the DCFS at a meeting says, well, Ms. Hebert, are you going to stay married or not? Because either way, for the next 18 years, you're going to be co-parenting together. So you better make up your mind. But then I decided, yes, we'll look for a place together. We're just going to go forward, act like none of this ever happened. You know, with God, all things are possible. We're going to have an amazing family. We're going to have an amazing life. We found an adorable little cottage-like apartment in Granada. So we moved into our new place in the beginning of August. It was my birthday. We had a big birthday celebration. We had our family over. Then on the vigil of the Feast of the Assumption of Mary, August 15th, Audrey got back. Okay, so I'm like, I have to slow down here. I don't know why I'm going into my entire life story. I don't know. I guess people do this on TikTok. Maybe I'm still new to this. Basically, you know, I tried to be the most amazing wife I could be. I really gave... Okay. What it really boils down to is a father, as I said, sets the stage for how his daughter is going to be treated by men for the rest of her life. If he loves her and adores her and cherishes her, she will gravitate towards a husband like that or a man like that. And if not, she's going to gravitate towards... So what it really boils down to is I've been abused really my whole life. And I was like, I'm not going to be abused anymore. And even though the physical had stopped, the emotional was so bad that I'm like, I'm not going to have my daughter be abused when she's growing up. So I left him. I mean, I never really planned on being a single mom, but there was really no question. It's like, you know what? My daughter is not going to grow up the same way that I grew up being abused, emotionally, you know, and put down and all of that. So yeah, it was very hard, but I just did it. I grabbed my stuff and went to my parents' house. So I went to my parents' house and, you know, he kept saying, you're pregnant. That's why you're doing this. I'm like, I'm not pregnant. But 3 months later, 3 months after being gone, turns out I was with baby Grace. You know, and I suppose any other mom in my shoes might have said, oh no, I can't have this baby. I don't want to have, you know, 2 children as a single mom. When I found out that I was pregnant, I cried tears of joy. I was so happy. I felt this was God's grace to me, God's gift, God's blessing. So I was pregnant with Grace, and Audrey and I were going to her, still back to her classes at the YMCA. She was doing tap, no, not at that point. We were just doing mommy and me classes at that point, but it was really special time. And then it wasn't too long after I found out that I was pregnant with Grace that I found out that I had a high-risk pregnancy. So I had to be on bed rest. So there was no more why. It was me laying on the couch, coloring with Audrey and doing arts and crafts and things like that. And then I started having to see a special doctor every other week. It was every week actually. I went to my OBGYN to get her checked out, and then the specialist, and we'd get all these ultrasounds, 3D. It was super special because, as you moms know, the ultrasound 3Ds, they only save them for the very end. Well, I got to get one or several, like each and every week. And so Audrey would go, hi, baby sister. And one time Grace winked at us. And one time it looked like she gave. So that's all I'm going to say. She was born the day before her due date, just like Audrey was born a day before her due date. And she was perfectly healthy, not one single problem, absolutely beautiful, blessed, in 2 hours. From the time I got there till the time I gave birth, 2 hours. And not to go into all of this is all going in my book, and you will be wanting to get a copy of that, I'm sure. But basically, they got taken away unjustly for the second time after Grace was born, a couple months, because the DCFS got involved. I felt that Audrey... Yeah, as I said, I thought that Audrey had been abused, so I called them, and right away, instead of like looking into it, they just assume, oh, it's mother. She's got a mental health condition. We're going to take them away. Took me 2.5 years to get them back, but I got them back right before... So there was a lot of praying involved, a lot of YouTube videos asking people to pray, a lot of prayers at church, a lot of prayer chains. It was a miracle that they came back to me right before Valentine's Day in 2015. We were so happy to be together. We were living with my parents. And unfortunately, as much as we love being together, obviously that was a given, there was a lot of fighting, a lot of yelling, a lot of screaming on a daily basis, not from us, but from other people. And it was just really, really hard to deal with on a daily basis. And unfortunately, and one night it just got really bad. My daughters both didn't feel safe. I didn't feel safe. I called my therapist. He said, you need to call 911, asked to be taken to a safe place. And I did. And when they got there, the tables were turned on me. See, unfortunately, there's a lot of discrimination in our world. We know that with a myriad of different things, but especially with having a mental health condition, there's a lot of ignorant people. I don't mean that in a bad way, but they just don't understand. They don't know what it entails, and they assume that you're crazy. Yes, the tables were turned on me. The police were told that I was bipolar, which I am, but I take medication. I was very stable. I see a doctor, a therapist. They were told that I was delusional and off my medication and needed to be hospitalized. And so they hospitalized me against my own will. Yes. And I know my rights, obviously, that had happened 2 times prior. I had looked them up. So I looked in their face. I said, turn your body cam on, the little camera. I said, you cannot do this. I'm not grievously disabled. I'm not a danger to myself, a danger to others. I said, yes, we can. And so it was pretty devastating. My daughters are crying. They're seeing their mom in handcuffs. They're going, Mommy, you didn't do anything. Why are they doing this? And then when they took me away, they put me on a stretcher in the ambulance and they were screaming. They ripped them out of my arms first before they handcuffed me. It was really bad. So yeah, that happened to us for the 3rd time. And excuse me, I went to the hospital. The doctor said, my dear, he knew me. He said, you're going to get your kids taken away because immediately when that happens to a parent, when they're 51-50 against their own will, automatically your kids get taken away. And actually the doctor said I was fine. He said, you don't need to be here. You need to go home and be with your children. He wrote a letter for the court, said that I was stable, said that I was fine. The judge would not let me testify as I was told I could. The attorney would not let me turn into. And actually the doctor said, and this is how it goes in these kinds of situations when you get your children taken away. I'm sitting up with the attorneys and everybody at the desk there, and the social worker for the DCFS gets on the stand and totally lies about me, makes up stuff that wasn't even true. And so being the polite lady that I am, I sat there very patiently praying throughout the entire hearing like I always do with my hands folded like this. And finally, the judge said he was going to send my kids to foster care. And I said, Your Honor, may I say something? And he screamed at me. And so a lot has happened since then. That was 5 years ago in January. I can tell you that I've been fighting nonstop, day and night, fighting and praying and working with attorneys and writing declarations and filing petitions, working my butt. And going back to the discrimination thing, what's been happening here with me these 3 times is discrimination. Like I said, I've never abused, neglected, or abandoned my children. They should have never been taken away once, let alone 3 times. And the judge should have given them back. And I don't want to put parents down if they drink. I mean, that's not a sin, but I don't drink alcohol, so that's ruled out. And I don't do drugs, so that's ruled out. And I don't rob banks, and I'm a good moral person, and I love God with all my heart and soul, and I love my children. I just want to be with. And in case you're wondering, well, why don't you get evaluated? I have been evaluated so many times. I've had at least 3 730 psychological evaluations, passed them with flying colors, and the judge still will not give them back to me. He hates me. Oh, and another thing people will say, well, just do whatever they tell you. Oh, darlings, trust me, I have. Within the first 8 weeks, I was done with my parenting classes. I take my medication. I see my doctor. I see my therapist. I've jumped through all the hoops and they still will not give. Oh, and okay, but here's the hopeful part. The hopeful part is that I have a hearing that I've been waiting an entire year for, coming up in just less than 2 weeks on the 14th. So if you could pray, please, that my daughters come home to me, that would be amazing. Thank you so much. So I don't know how many of you on TickTock here pray, but if you do pray, if you want to light a candle, just pray, Dear God, please reunite this loving mother, Jennifer, Audrey, and Grace. Let them come home to the loving mom. That's what they want to be. That's what they do. So now that I went into all that a lot more than I really intended to, I hope that it will just clear up a lot of the questions that you all have been asking. There's been so many. I haven't had a chance to really sit down and go through all of them, but just to kind of give you an idea of where I'm coming from. I mean, if you're a parent, I hope that you can put yourself in my shoes and think about how devastating it might be for you, not the first time or the second time, but for the third time to have your babies ripped from your loving arms when you really didn't deserve it. And just to let you know how much we see each other, for the first year, I was only allowed to see them for 1 hour a week. Can you imagine? And that's kind of how it is now. 1 hour a week for the whole first year at the DCFS office, monitored by the DCFS. And for the second year, they threw us a bone. They let me get a professional monitor outside the DCFS 9 hours a week. And that was like heaven on earth. It was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. We can go to the mall. We can go to dinner. We can go to lunch. It was like heaven on earth for us. It was amazing. And then in 2017, in the summer or September, I had a hearing, and my psychiatrist, my psychologist was there, and the doctor, the forensic doctor who examined me, and they all said she's stable, she's healthy. So those doctors said that I was absolutely stable, that I'm an amazing mom, that I'm a safe mom to return my children to my full custody and care. Our monitor said that I was literally like the most loving, amazing parent she's ever met or worked with. So instead of the judge giving custody back to me on that day, he not only did not give me custody back, he went as far as to what's called terminate my reunification services, making it really that much harder for me to get custody back. It was just... And then in June 2018, my attorney told me to ask my parents to write a letter, because they had temporary custody at the time, saying what an amazing mom I was so I could get custody back. And my mom said, nope, I will not. And the judge... And people find this hard to believe, but even though just 3 weeks prior, Audrey came out and let us know that she was being physically abused, we had pictures of bruises, we had recordings, the judge says, I think they're safe. Oh, they're safe with them, but not with me. And they got legal guard. So yeah, my 9 hours a week with my daughters out in public suddenly went to a court order being 1 15-minute monitored phone call a night. And then if my mom chooses, she can let me have a monitored visit or something like that. And really, that's how it's been for the last 2.5 years, since June of 2018. I never know when I'm going to see them. Sometimes I don't see them for a month. Sometimes I see that. It's awful. It's heartbreaking. So please pray for me, please. So as I said, I have this hearing coming up on the 14th. It is going to be kind of like a Zoom kind of a hearing over an online hearing. So please pray that the judge is favorable and will give me my children back. My children are with my 76-year-old parents. They don't want to be there. So TickTock, with all of that being said, that's a lot more than I had planned. I thought I would just do 3 videos to get to this part to say, now you might understand why I might have walked into Vaughn's in my bra and undergarments. I don't do things like that, but I'll tell you why. I mean, in all honesty, I blamed the whole Vaughn's thing on Father Ethan. It's not his fault. He did not call me and say, Jennifer, do this. Honestly, Father Jerry, the priest in Florida, after my brother committed suicide in 1994, told me this. I mean, the thing is that Father Jerry did say that to me a long time ago, that, it would be perfectly acceptable because of all the trauma your mom went through, having lost her son to suicide. I feel the same way about me, and I kept thinking it's only a matter of time that So I think I give a better picture of what's really going on in my life, not just this mother that dances around, in her bra or goes to Vaughn's, half naked, nothing like that. No, this is real trauma that I'm dealing with. I have post-traumatic stress. It is so painful. It is so hard. And for somebody that doesn't understand, well, why does she want to talk to this Father Ethan? Does she have a crush on him? Well, admit it, he's very handsome and he's very charismatic and he loves God. When you hear his homilies, you can't help but see how much he loves God and God loves him. It's just very beautiful. And yes, I've told this story many times to friends, to family, on YouTube videos, on Facebook Lives, and my therapist, and doctor, but there's something different than telling a priest who can give you spiritual feedback, godly feedback. And yes, I told a couple of other priests about my story and they gave some good feedback, but Father Ethan is the new pastor of our parish for about a year now. And when I heard his talks, you can look at him online, Southard. As I think I've mentioned, at least in a couple of TikToks, I had a spiritual director who actually was the former a few years ago, the former pastor of our parish. For 4 years, I was in spiritual direction with him once a month, and that's meeting with him once a month, talking about my life. Now, for somebody else that's not Catholic, they might not get how meeting with a spiritual director really helps you. I can't even say how helpful it is. It's just such a beautiful thing to sit with a person who knows you and sit in God's presence and pray with you and give you And so studying to become a spiritual director myself for 2 years, I know that choosing a spiritual director, it's a very long process. You want to put a lot of time into it. You want to put a lot of care into it because it's kind of like choosing a spouse in a way, not all the way, but because a spiritual director has to be somebody that you really trust and that you can really confide in. And it's kind of like entering into, it's a professional, of course, but it's like entering into a sacred relationship with this person. And you really want to make sure you're picking the right. When I was in my studies for spiritual direction at Mount St. Mary's, like many years ago, there's many different terms for a spiritual director. It could be like friend of the soul. I love that one. Like friend of the soul, caretaker for the soul, things. So as I said, yes, I do have a therapist and that helps a lot, but that's more of a kind of I don't want to say generic, but it's not bringing my faith into it that much. We don't really talk about it that much, but I want to dive into my faith with this person. I want to bring my faith into it. So the last time that I was in spiritual direction was in 2007 with my former pastor of my parish. I haven't been in spiritual direction since then, and I'm just realizing lately, oh my gosh, I could have had my children back by now. I literally could have had them back if I wasn't sure about him. I didn't know much about him before he came to our parish, and I hadn't been to too many of his masses. But after seeing his Instagram videos, God really spoke to my heart and said, Jennifer, this is my chosen, beautiful priest. He loves me. So that's all. When I left him those 3 messages, one on his voicemail, 2 at the parish, I was just saying that I need some spiritual counseling, not like really in depth, but I really just needed to talk to him just to really get some advice or. And yes, I was very public about the fact that I got arrested 3 times by this priest. I don't understand why. 2 times I didn't understand why. So I went back yesterday, was it 2 days ago, to just say, excuse me, why don't you like me? What have I done to you? Why? And so I get it. Yesterday or 2 days ago, the videos where I was in the blue top and knocking on the door, open up, Father Ethan, I look kind of crazy a little bit. But listen, this guy got me arrested 2 times. What is going on here? I demand an explanation. I do have dignity, and looking at my videos within the last few days, one might think, oh, she's depressed, or many have said, you're manic. I'm not manic, and I'm not depressed. I mean, it's heartbreaking what I'm going through, not just because of that, because being separated from my daughters. I'm just making. In all honesty, for any person of faith, this whole COVID situation we're going through makes it harder because, they're only allowing like a certain amount of people, like at my parish, like 100 people outside in the plaza. So I love the Eucharist and I haven't been to. I mean, if you're a Catholic, you might see it this way, like I just thought of this just now. Basically, I love Jesus so much and I love God so much that not going to Mass and not receiving the Eucharist is like sleeping next to your husband for a year and not making love to that person. And that's what makes us Catholic. There's lots of great Christian churches out there. People say, well, change churches, go to a Christian church without the Eucharist. And so to me, that's just not cutting it. I need it. Catholics, we're very tangible. We have to, consume. I was a Eucharistic minister, still am, for 22 years. For 10 years, every single Sunday, 2 times in two different masses, I served communion, Holy Communion and Mass. Then I went to a rest home once a month and did communion services like a priest. So for me, the communion, the body of Christ and the blood of Christ, when I consume Jesus into my own body, I feel him coming into my soul, coming into my body and transforming me. I mean, I feel more beautiful. I look more. And yes, I do have a mental health condition. I'm not ashamed to say that. I've taken medication for it for 20 years, but it's not just the medication that's kept me stable all these years. It is the body and blood of Christ absolutely has just healed me. One of my favorite Catholic experiences of me being a Catholic and serving in my faith has been to see people, literally on their deathbed that I've gone to see when I've given them communion and their eyes just light up, their face lights up like a Christmas tree. And that's why we have Holy Communion. That's why Jesus instituted this into the Catholic Church, because he doesn't want to just live in our minds and live in our hearts, by his word. That's beautiful too, but by his body and his blood to actually just become one. So yeah, it's all coming back to me now. I'm like, wait a second. Oh my goodness. It's been since March that I've had communion. I guess I just thought, well, everybody's doing it. So, we're just doing the online masses, but no, I need Jesus. I need Jesus in the Eucharist. And I'll just even say, I know Jesus needs me. I know that Jesus is the lover of my soul. And I'm not saying that he's not the lover of every other person's soul in that parish, but I probably, aside from the nuns, am the only one that consecrated my life to him. And so going back to the spiritual direction thing, I finally realized, I said, okay, God, I definitely need to be in spiritual direction again. Would you please lead me and guide me to the person you want to be my spiritual director? I felt he said, Father Ethan, loud and clear. So that's why. It's a wonder I got my children back the first 2 times not being in spiritual direction. That was when I had a lot of people praying. This time around, I feel like people are kind of like, yeah, we prayed the last 2 times. This is the 3rd time. They don't know whether to believe or not. Like if I... and you may wonder, well, why is she saying that? Well, I'm fighting evil. If you knew what I was up against, the DCFS, anybody that thinks they're the good guys, you're wrong. They are bad. They are evil. I'm fighting them. I need help with this. I really, really do. I really do. Seeing a spiritual director who's a priest, that's just more than seeing any other person. It's not just like, oh, teach me a special prayer to fight evil. No, they are so close to God that they can kind of like pull out. I'm sure you've been able to tell by now, by all the string of videos that I've been doing, that I'm a super strong woman. You have to be going through what I've gone through. God has made, I've always been, ever since a little girl, I came into this world an incredibly strong woman of faith. And I just need encouragement. Yeah, more than anything else, with prayers from a spiritual director, I just need encouragement to say, Jennifer, you've got a strong faith. God loves you. You love God. God is not going to abandon you. God is going to come through for you and your daughters. God wants you to be together and all that. Yeah. For 14 years now, I've worked as a special education paraprofessional, working one-on-one with children who have special needs for the school district in Los Angeles. And I cannot tell you how much encouragement helps people and helps children. Not that I'm a child of God. Because what you all might not realize about me is that I'm a very faithful person. I'm a very hopeful person, a very loving person, but I've got so much hope. Jennifer Hope is my music name, okay? I have so much hope, and yet so many people are discouraging me, saying I'm never going to. You would think that the people in my family that supposedly love me and care about me and my daughters would say, yes, we're rooting for you, girl. We want you to get your girls back. They belong with you, not with 76-year-olds. No offense, but they belong with their loving mom. Instead, they're telling. So lastly, I will just say this. If you're all thinking, well, she must have done some kind of mistake with Father Ethan. Yes, I did. Instead of trusting him, God let me know that he should be my spiritual director. God did. God shined a light on him. He is the one you are to ask to be your. And at the same time, I'm still going through this crisis with my daughters. They're literally bruised every single time that I see them. And there was this one day where I thought I need to talk to Father Ethan. I had never met him before. I just saw a couple of his homilies. And I went to the church to talk to him. So like I said, on this one day, I said, I have to talk to Father Ethan. I went to the church. I was so nervous because every time I was going to not ask him to be my spiritual director that day, but just to talk to me about my daughters for a minute. But every time I asked for help about my daughters, people. So I finally decided to go to the church one day. It was like right after Valentine's Day. I just wanted to ask him for a little bit of spiritual advice about my daughters, and I chickened out. And instead, I went into the church and took a few selfies. Yeah. And by all means, they were not bad selfies. They were cute selfies. I'm the selfie queen. Yes, my daughters call me that. I've got lots of selfies on my Facebook and Instagram. But I don't know, maybe I think God kind of led me to, I don't know why. I just went around the church and took selfies with them. So I understand how that can look. I guess it was just like, I have to get this person's attention, because I had left 2 messages at the parish. Look, I'm really going through a spiritual crisis. Can I just please talk to you for a minute? And then I left him a voicemail as well, and he never got back. And I will just say this, it's very true. If I was still dressing like a nun, and not that I looked like a nun, but I kind of dressed like a nun, I was trying to anyway, he might take me on in a heartbeat. Say, sure, I'll see you for spiritual direction. I'll talk to you. But looking like somebody told me one time, a long time ago, that I'm a very beautiful woman, younger woman then, and that my beauty can be a double-edged sword. You know, I can use it for my advantage or disadvantage. I try not to use it for my disadvantage, but in a situation like this, you know, I'll just say I can understand where he might be coming from. Like, listen, you know, she's gorgeous or she's beautiful. If he thinks that, or maybe other people think she is, and hey, we're around the same age. I don't want anybody thinking that like we're dating or that she likes me or he, whatever. I get that. But really, this is what I've been dealing with my whole life. It's like, it's hard being a beautiful woman because, like I said, part of the reason why I went into my nun phase was because I got sexually harassed by the choir director when I first moved out here. He got on top of me and started having sex with this. You know what I found? It's like if men feel that they don't trust me, it's not so much that they don't trust me for being a beautiful woman, but they might not trust themselves around me. But if they knew me, they'd know what a solid woman I am, of faith, of hope, of love. I'm a holy, holy woman. You know what I found? It's like, you know, and part of what I want to talk about in spiritual direction is not just getting my daughters back, but the real reality that I was in an intimate relationship with a Catholic priest from 17 to 21. I got pulled into that. That was not my fault. I report. Because regardless of what anybody thinks about that, it wasn't my fault. I did not initiate this. I did not run after this priest. He ran after me for some reason. And, you know, nobody wants to help me heal. Nobody wants to help me get over it or get... I mean, I should have been giving counseling in 1995 when I reported that to the Diocese of Venice. The priest was giving counseling. They just said never talk to him again and move on and act like it never happened. I've been in 25 years of therapy and I still have not been able to heal from that. So anyway, so that's all. So, you know, the role of a priest, they have a lot, especially a pastor. There's a lot on their plate. But some of that role is to be there to offer spiritual advice or spiritual support to the parishioners. And I'm a parishioner.